Yeah. All right. Stuff is looking pretty good. Just trying to properly show Callahan here. But it's tough, man. It's tough with... Yeah, I'll just go a little more like that. That'll work. That'll do, pig. And I need to do the proverbial sharing stuff. So this is always a little bit of behind the curtain action, everybody. Just make sure I've got this tab muted. And I know it's always a little odd with the impromptu that we have going on here. All right, Jose Storms, what's going, man? Yeah, this is a very impromptu thing, as they often are when I go live for this program, since this program has been kind of haphazard back and forth. But I'm going to make sure that I get this shared to the Hail to Stephen King group. Hope you're having a bad status day there, brother. Okay, where are we at? Curious what sort of so where is the link ski? Is it channel? There we go. Okay, cool. Yeah, so this was not premeditated. This this was actually going to be a very much pre-recorded sort of situation with the announcement on the Superb Owl about King's new book. Everybody had heard about Jack Sawyer ending the trilogy coming, but yeah, when the news came today about old Flanagan, and I've definitely got thoughts about that. So this ended up turning into a very supersized affair because of that. So, okay, come on, Hail Group. I just don't use the Facebooks anywhere near as much as I used to, but I know that there's a distinctive audience there. Excusez-moi. But yep, so anybody who may be filing in, if not, I always trim these down after the fact. So, thanks so very much for jumping in to at least show for a little bit. I know when it's midweek on a Tower Tuesday, it's always significantly more haphazard, but live in vivo ahora. Okay. But yeah, big news. Flanagan just rolling along with it. More and more stuff that is not the Dark Tower. Very, very disappointing and discouraging in said regard. But it is what it is. Everybody's got to eat, especially Flanagan. Makes me wonder how this is all going to tie in with his first look deal and everything else. But for now, okay, so there's that, and then so yeah, exciting to a degree, I guess. But I don't know if you have any thoughts about the new book, Jose, or obviously Flanagan doing another version of The Mist, which I'm just like, okay, that's cool. That's cool. Okay, select all. Come on, copy. Bangarang. Okay. All right. And obviously this lives on after the live fact. So regardless of how many get to jump through here. Okay. Tedious process. Okay, we're only a couple minutes out, so that's good. So this is going to be a little bit of a King catch-up, as well as, okay, it's time to ask Flanagan. Yeah, I know. Steve right there, and then make sure that I tag old Flanny properly, because Flanagan does have a X account that I know he gets on. So, okay. Flanagan film. Oh, come on. Boy, the autocorrect sometimes, I swear, the joys of modern technology. Now I know how Cecil feels anytime he's trying to do one of these back on the homestead. There we go. Okay. Losing ratings. Okay, come on. It's not that hard there, Phoneski. Swear, the AI advent, it's been very, very frightening and frustrating. Okay. Okay. What you got, man? Okay, I'm surprised it's not another Holly novel and laughing my ass off, but I thought King wouldn't finish that third novel of a now trilogy. Yeah, especially after Straub passed away, man. I mean, I had my significant skepticism, but yeah, and yet he did announce that there is going to be another Holly book. So, who the hell knows? Maybe it will be him finally, allowing her to rest or vacation or whatever. But in any event, well, that is shared there. Okay, let's just get this link in play one more time. Where is the... Because that's the thing, you got to spread it over all the damn socials, and let's update the bio. Oops, edit bio. There you go. Link. Remove. Shlabanga. Done. Okay. Threadzys. Well, it's already 10 minutes out, and I do not have all of the time in the world anyway, so this will live on with everybody else after the fact. So, okay, get that there. Bada spling and swing. Okay, that's all right. Well, let's do it to it then. Actually, make sure I have that other article queued up. Since I was just reading a great bit from Esquire where they went into, and I'm going to be referencing that here in a little bit. So, and then let's also jump over to one more thing-a-lang, and they're probably going to send me another push notification because everything is all so heavily secured, and rightfully so. But okay. Okay, I think that's good enough for me. So cool. Get one more of the whistle wetting, and here we go. All right. Long days and pleasant nights, fellow travelers along the path of the beam. I am known on this level of the tower as Jaime and Fuego. And if it please you, join me here for a bit of palaver on Hail to Stephen King. That is Reezy, everybody. This is the midst of the 9th year of this program. Just celebrated 350 episodes this past weekend when I put out kind of a 2025 retrospective, like looking back at how could it be in contention for the biggest year ever for Stephen King. I mean, rivaling 1983, rivaling 2017, and to some even 2019. So, but yeah, it was a look back at everything in 2025. But the one thing that I did lament at the end of that near hour-long video was the fact that as of when I filmed it, which was like right as we were going, I think it was the first week of February, but it was before the Superb Owl, and we got the official announcement and everything about the third Jack Sawyer book, which we have been just wondering if it would ever happen, as Jose Storms said at the very beginning of this program. But we have the Carrie series from Mike Flanagan. We think we have, this third return to, the territories, Midworld. Yeah, nothing was really set in stone. We were wondering, would we get the second season of The Institute? We were wondering if there would be any other cool little surprises that came through the pipeline. And sure enough, the day that I had that episode going live, after it was, I finished editing it a couple days before, but I was putting it up on Superb Owl Sunday, and lo and behold, yeah, it was a big time bummer because the announcement came this past Sunday about Other Worlds Than These, which is the third installment of this series right here, Jack Sawyer books. So initially in, I believe it was November of 1984, we had the OG Talisman. Yeah, I've Still got a little bit of dust. It's a little bit of a battered copy because it has been read a number of times. But yeah, y'all. And then in 2001, Peter Straub and Cy King, they decided to return to this character, and, you know, like Parkus and Wolf and all of the just awesome melding of, you know, fantasy and a little bit of westerniness, you know, tiniest bit of sci-fi. I mean, the original Talisman was much more just in the medieval fantasy, you know, merging with the modern world. But as the Dark Tower series developed, this with Black House in September of 2001 was where all confirmations were, you know, made concrete, so to speak. And yet, unfortunately, in 2022, we lost Peter Straub, author of, I mean, what is it? Coco, I think, was the Vietnam one that I'm thinking of. Ghost Story, I know, was made into a very different feature film in the early 80s and stuff. But yeah, I mean, a very celebrated writer in his own right, as redundant as that sounds now that I think about it. But so, yeah, we had these two, and we were always wondering, would we ever get a third and final book? But it was finally announced after King had confirmed that it was finished and that it was coming very soon. Now to have the official title, Other Worlds Than These, which is obviously a rad status title. Big time fan of that. And it is releasing, I believe it is October 6th, just to double check the Esquire article, because King actually sat down and did an exclusive interview with them and a preview of the book. And it's not like behind the paywall or anything like that. So you can just do a little search. And there's also the first excerpt from the book. So I'm going to be getting to that here in just a little bit as people continue, hopefully, filtering through and whatnot. But yeah, so after Straub died at the age of 78, unfortunately, that's where a lot of people were just like, is this ever going to happen? Interestingly enough, though, Straub had a pretty consistent kind of pitch idea, like his little elevator pitch of sorts that he had sent in an email to King. King actually talked a little bit about this on the King cast a couple years ago, but or maybe it was within the last year or so. And in any event, so he had this idea for this. I believe it was is it Starkweather was the guy that he was drawing some inspiration from. I just want to double check because I didn't know shit about that particular dude until. Okay, I'm just where the hell we at? Yeah, Charles Starkweather. Okay, so I didn't know anything about Charles Starkweather until I was producing something called Profiling Pain, as in Payne, the former vocalist for my band Chiron. And yeah, so I produced a full season, the first season actually of his podcast, where it was each couple episodes like highlighted a different serial killer. And so that was when I first heard about Charles Starkweather. And it was the second book here, you know, where they went into was it Albert Fish or Albert Finney? I forget, but you know, the older, you know, child killer monster, whatever. So that was Black House went into a lot of those sort of themes. And apparently Straub was very game to kind of continue in that particular vein because, you know, obviously this one, the OG Talisman, did not really have much of that vibe to it. So King decided to go back as he is aging himself now, you know, pushing 80 and everything. And yeah, he was just like, I want to go back to Midworld / the territories, and I want to give Jack Sawyer, because it ends on a cliffhanger, obviously, without getting into too much spoilery detail. He faces death like big time. There is he's still struggling. He's still like mortally wounded, you know, at least as far as going back to the Americas and everything. But yeah, he's okay when he's in Midworld, the Midworld territory sort of situations. But so anyway, because as often happens with the second stories and trilogies, whether it's, you know, Two Towers, Empire Strikes Back, if you're going to think about the Clerks 2 bickering between is it Phineas or what? Anyway, so yeah. Second entries and trilogies all too often have the whole cliffhanger action going down. Sorry, dry mouth action going. But yeah, so Other Worlds Than These officially dated for October 6th. So incredibly exciting. And as I searched into some additional details, which I was not aware of until I was getting deeper into this Esquire article, and then also if you subscribe to Stephen King's newsletter, that I believe Scribner, or it's either Scribner or Simon and Schuster, I forget which one of those two, but yeah, they put out a King newsletter, and they actually sent it out right before I was going live here. And they were giving some additional information about this. And let's just give that little bit. So about the book, Jack Sawyer returns. We first met him at 12, flipping between America and the territories to save his mother's life. We met him again in Black House, facing a child killer and the Crimson King. Now, Jack's quartet is fraying, echoing the world of Roland the Death Chain, and his task seems nearly impossible. In other worlds than these, Jack must stand against a rampaging gang of infected teenagers on America's side and the encroaching forces of the mysterious Gullet at the edge of Midworld. He is the only thing standing between us and the destruction of all worlds. Magnificent, riveting, and full of heart and humor, this is a spectacular, propulsive adventure that will appeal to new readers just as deeply as it does to longtime fans. Now, this is the detail that I was unaware of. The book is apparently going to feature 36 different exclusive black and white illustrations by acclaimed artist Gabriel Rodriguez. And the great thing about Gabe is that he goes way back in the Sai King family, whereas he did work on Fairy Tale with El Rey. He goes even further back because he was the illustrator for Lock and Key that Joe Hill did, Steve's son, Joseph Hillstrom King. And yeah, just the fact that he is coming back to work on this because of the fact that it has the, fantasy aspect and everything, which obviously Gabe does a terrific job playing in that particular, that sort of genre work and everything. So that is extremely exciting. I mean, that's something to get riveted about. And then the title instantly announces to those who know Steve has returned to the worlds you love. So yeah, you can actually, okay, so they have a link to the exclusive excerpt, which we're going to take a peek at in a little bit. And then you can, pre-orders are already up, obviously, because that's where they hold off on these. So you can jump on Amazon. I think you can even already pre-order the Audible. I'm not sure who is, let's see if they already have it up on Audible, because I did not see, because maybe they would already have who is going to be narrating. So let's take a peek. Yep, and all of the Harry Potters that I have been getting the full cast together for. So other worlds than these. Do they have it up already? Of course they do. Do they say who it's being read by, though? That's what I'm curious about. 30 hours in length. Yep. Unabridged. I'm looking. Okay. It does not specify, at least as of right at the moment that I can see, who is... okay. Yep, and it's the same description we got from the Stephen King newsletter, but they do not announce, at least as of now, who has this. I guess, who knows? Maybe they haven't even recorded it yet. But so very exciting to finally get this dated and everything. And obviously for Tower junkies like myself, I mean, when this program was really getting ramped up and going back in 2017, because I launched it initially in 2016 as kind of a preliminary strike, so to speak, because at that point we knew that 2017 was going to have all of these things coming out. We had a Dark Tower movie, we had an It remake, we had a couple books coming. I mean, just various awesome things. And so in September of 2016, so just about 7 months away, something like that, as of this point. Yeah, 7 months. That was when I did my very first official episode of Hail to Stephen King. So we're about to celebrate. Can't believe I've been doing this King coverage for 10 years, man. It's absolutely wild. And just to even have, not just sustained King interest. And, thankfully he's still, up and working and writing and putting books out after all of this coverage, going back through that huge tower of tomes behind me and reading every single one of them in published order. It was an honor and a privilege to get to cover all of those. And over the course of the initial 333 episodes of Hail to Stephen King on the Horror Show channel, which, we just got together this past weekend, and we're doing a big Superb Owl. It was like a terror tournament of all these different iconic horror characters, 128 of them. And you'll have to watch the 9-hour stream if you want to see who the eventual victor was. I was happy about it. I was, especially down to who the final four were, but no spoilers here in that regard. So, and then Cecil and I, just this upcoming weekend, we're going to be doing reviews of Cold Storage and The Mortuary Assistant. So even though Hale migrated over here after the 333rd episode, when I went back to Arizona State to study film and media and get that bachelor's degree wrapped up last year, the intent now is to really, really get this program, even if it's only a couple times a month. But this is going to be the most closely approximated episodes back to back that I've done in quite a while. Because, yeah, anytime you're putting together a near hour episode with overlays and all that stuff, overlaying images and whatnot, doing a live show like this, even though I'm not, tossing on images, it's all like just visual aids right here with me. It's significantly easier just doing a live show like this in comparison with, the whole, just overlaying everything, rendering, blah, blah, blah for a video of that length. I mean, it takes a lot of time. So, and I still, been working and pursuing all kinds of other artistic things and, looking for, more pro work within the industry as opposed to independently contracted stuff or, journalistic opportunities as press and whatever, trying to get like deeper and bigger and more official. But, that is neither here nor there. Getting this going more consistently and having 2 episodes back to back like this is pretty dope. But that is because this was originally going to be a pre-scripted, pre-edited, everything overlaid sort of situation. The one thing that I do want to mention before I veer to the second topic real quick is that they have been trying to make the Talisman for a long ass time. Steven Spielberg was enamored with this book when it first came out in 1984. And so he scooped up the rights, which he has possessed since the book came out. And he's just brought on different people who have been trying to work with his Amblin Entertainment to make it. But it's never happened. Most recently, we had the Duffer Brothers of Stranger Things fame, and they were trying to get it off the ground, but they signed a first look deal. And I believe they're jumping over to Amazon now, if I recall correctly, which is also where Flanagan resides. And we're going to be getting to him in just a little bit. But closest that we ever came was this, The Road of Trials, which I believe is the first book within the initial, I should just double check. It's been a number of years now since I have last time read the Road of Trials. So it is the first. I mean, Jack's Lights Out is just kind of an introduction, so to speak. But Road of Trials is part 2 in this, the first like full-fledged sort of situation. But the closest as far as adaptations go, and this was produced right around the time that Marvel was doing the Dark Tower stuff. They had also, I think it was before The Stand, but that was already planned, or maybe it was already in the midst of release. I mean, Marvel did a lot of King stuff. They also did N. This did not come from Marvel. This is from a smaller publisher, but it does say Del Rey Books here. So in any event, it did not sell very well. And I also didn't love the artwork. Interestingly enough, here we see a little bit of it. But it also expanded a little bit into some pre-story, which was kind of cool. So it didn't sell very well. And despite, the Washington Post, New York Daily News, a new #1 New York Times bestseller, maybe that was for like the first issue or 2, and then, just kind of petered off. But this is the closest we have come to any sort of full-fledged adaptation, because they never forged forward after that. So bit of a bummer. I'm just going to check the chat real quick since I have been ranting and rambling for a little bit now. So let's see. Corey Novak. Yo, good sir. What is going on, man? Hope the new year has been well met for you thus far, man. Jose jumps in a little bit and says, I find it rather fascinating that Netflix canned the Duffers' attempt to adapt the Talisman regardless of the whole WBD drama, even though you think it would hype this finale novel in this trilogy. Well, Jose, just I don't know when you threw that in the chat. Instead of remaking Cujo, Carrie, or The Mist, like they should remake The Lawnmower Man. Yeah, exactly. I think it really does boil down, Jose, to the fact that, the Duffers were leaving. And even though they, as creators of, Stranger Things, they have that animated version that's coming and everything. But with them signing that first look deal and departing Netflix, I would imagine that probably put a significant strain and maybe was like the final, nail in the coffin of that project inevitably not happening. But, they were lamenting it most recently as Stranger Things was coming to a close. They were they were saying, man, we did so much work on this property, to have it just not come to fruition is just a big bummer. But it's just, to quote Ice Cube from NWA Straight Outta Compton record, yeah, you want to say it was a test of a different style? It's just another motherfucker on the pile. So it's just another one on the pile of many who have tried to, look how long it took them to finally make the long walk, man, but it finally came out, and, Francis Lawrence did a hell of a job. And that's much less high profile than something where you have Steven Spielberg and Amblin Entertainment that's been, attempting to develop it for all of these years and whatnot. So, but yeah, as much of a bummer as it is to say, I think that is one of the things that made it not end up happening. So I've got, I believe it is Hudson is there. They should bring back Thomas Jane, not as the father this time, but as Carmen. That would be very interesting. I know Miss Carmody is a woman, but it would be cool to have Jane back in some capacity, and I want to see him play evil. Yeah, and he played evil terrifically, but not full-blown evil, with still love for his son and everything in 1922. I thought he was excellent in that role, with just the darkness within him. And that was also like kind of a religious slant too. Dude, Hudson, that is a kick-ass suggestion, man. Greatly appreciate that. And that's the thing. If you're going to do something different and remake it, I mean, it's almost essential for it having to be something different, or else, like, who the hell cares? And that's what I'm going to get to right now, because so we have that exciting announcement about other worlds than these, and then what happens? Warner Brothers has to steal the thunder, unfortunately, because so based on the novella that was initially published in Dark Forces, and it was later collected in Skeleton Crew, which also had the monkey and the raft and some real bangerang stuff on there. And then they made the horrible, and so you have Mike Flanagan, the Stephen King's, I'm your number one fan. Stephen King's number one fan, arguably, obviously, but a Tower junkie in his own right. But he's done great adaptations of Gerald's Game, Dr. Sleep, which were both very precarious sort of adaptations to attempt. And that's really more so than anything because of the fact that, Gerald's Game, a lot of people felt unfilmable because it was so much of a one location, all in the head of our lead character that was played by Carla Gugino. I always mispronounce her last name and everything. But yeah. And then Dr. Sleep, the tough thing with that was he was trying to adapt a book that did not take into consideration Kubrick's version, which altered some things, especially some character motivational stuff that Sai King had so much of an issue with. And he was somehow able to do that, meld the best of both worlds, the starless of both organs. And I'm not going to quote the full Clark's bit there, but so he was somehow able to do two very difficult King adaptations, and then make The Excellent Life of Chuck, one of my favorite films of 2025, and then is currently doing a remake that I felt unnecessary because I love Mike Flanagan's work so much, whether it's Midnight Mass, which I always contend and forever will. It's the most Stephen King thing that he ever did, even though it's not a Stephen King adaptation. It's his version of a King sort of story. But, I mean, Hill House is exceptional. Absentia, I mean, his Ouija film, Before I Wake is really good. I mean, the guy's just incredibly talented and so great at crafting characters and giving them conviction. But even those in like kind of villainous sort of roles and whatnot, they still feel fully fleshed out. And that's what makes everything so great. And he strikes a chord with me because of the fact that he had a, kind of perilous kind of upbringing, and even to this day relationship with religion, and so that always speaks volumes to me in said regard. But they already made The Mist tremendously. Frank Darabont, who up until the ascension of Flanagan, as far as King adaptations go, everybody was like, well, it's either Frank Darabont, who did Shawshank and The Green Mile, and his third being this. And also, let's not forget The Woman in the Room, which, was what I believe it was the first Dollar Baby. But anyway, it was either that or Disciples of the Crow. Fuck, I can't remember. Anyway, or Rob Reiner, who his King stuff being excellent. I mean, Dolores Claiborne, Stand By Me, Misery. But a lot of people kind of give this one not crap for performance or for, just like writing, especially the kind of beefed up, like just rip your heart out ending to all of it. But The one criticism I see that comes from people about the 2007 version of The Mist is the fact that the 2007 version, the special effects in their estimation have not aged very well. Now, I have revisited it, and I think it's so much more so like a personal drama with like creatures as set dressing, obviously, more so than anything. I still think a lot of it looks great. When they go over to the pharmacy and the bits with the spiders and everything, but a lot of people say that those effects have not aged well, which is maybe one of the only motivations that I could see for tapping Mike Flanagan to do yet another, in my personal opinion, unnecessary Stephen King remake with The Mist. Because, I mean, maybe they're just adamant about getting the taste of that 2017 series that got canceled on Spike with one foul swoop after one season. It was pretty bad at times. However, it left the door open for at least doing something drastically different with like the Horseman shit they were teasing near the end of that first season. And I mean, it was getting pretty weird, and it was veering drastically from the source material. And that's where like finding that little sweet spot in the middle is incredibly difficult, right? Because you don't want to just do a straight adaptation of King, but then there's instances where you have what happened with this, for instance, with the 2020 version of The Stand, where you go so drastically different in just the actual assembly of it and, the narrative formation and with various other things. And the same thing was, with 2017, The Mist. I mean, it's like you want to deviate and you want it to be a different turn of the wheel, a different level of the tower, but you don't want to go too batshit crazy off the rails, because then it's like, okay, are you even adapting Sai King, or are you? I mean, what's the point? Why not just bring all of these really drastically different ideas and fashion your own narrative that takes inspiration from Stephen King, as opposed to just going for the name, brand recognition of the King of Horror and all of his associative IP and whatnot. So that's really the only way. Wash the taste out of the mouth from 2017, and the fact that I still have faith in Flanagan for this, for remaking The Mist. But I just really, it's another one of those, like, are we going to remake Shawshank? Are we going to remake The Green Mile? I mean, shit, I wouldn't put it past anything King being remade at this particular point. But there's a certain sense of sanctity, I guess, with the two that I just mentioned, with Green Mile and with Shawshank. Those are dramatic stories. Now, there is some supernaturalness to Coffee in Green Mile, but it is still much more so a dramatic prison sort of tale with some supernatural sprinkling of flavor in there. In comparison with this being very much so a supernatural, I mean, portals opening up to, a Thinny brings in all of these different, crazy creatures from Todash and whatnot. And so, I mean, I don't know, man. It's really, I guess, just effects, and maybe it really makes me wonder, and I'm hoping we get some context in the coming weeks or months or whatever, that who approached who, because it's apparently so. Mike Flanagan will be writing and directing for Warner Brothers, which is interesting because he has that first look deal with Amazon, and Amazon owns MGM, and that's the theatrical stuff that is going. So maybe, obviously, something must have been negotiated in this particular right. But who came to who? Did Flanagan have the idea, or did Warner Brothers just come to him and say, "Look, we have the rights to it right now. We want to relaunch it," as opposed to letting you make Revival or Doomakey or, one of the big heavy hitters or even the Talisman, for God's sake, which we were just talking about, obviously. We want you to do another version of The Mist. And and Flanagan's like, well, I'm already doing another version of Carrie. And I feel similarly to that, but even more to the state of overkill, because with Carrie, as I talked about in my 2025 look back video just this past Sunday, it's like, okay, we had the De Palma version that's about to turn 50. We had The Rage Carrie 2, which I actually don't hate. It's not a film that forgot the face of its father. It's pretty fun at times. Excuse me. But then, you had the backdoor pilot for that ended up just becoming a TV movie and not the full series that they wanted. And then we had the Chloe Grace Moretz. So we've had like all these different iterations of Carrie and the stage musical. And I'm just like, do we need a Flanagan Carrie? Why couldn't he have just done something different? I mean, do Doomickey as a series, do Insomnia as a series. But no, it's all about, it's not show friends, it's show business, as Robert Meyer Burnett, a buddy of John Campea, a guy that I watch both of them on the regular here on the YouTubies. But yeah, it's show business. And whereas you can have something like The Long Walk exceed expectations, then you have something like The Running Man, which was a remake and wasn't very good. I'm not to say that, the Arnold version was like amazing and like the best thing since sliced bread or anything, but it was fun. And I think that people, especially if they're familiar with the original versions of these films, like they've been trying to remake Christine for a while, but there's some trepidation. As Jose said earlier, you've got Darren Aronofsky trying to do another version of Cujo for Netflix. It's like, I feel like in many ways they are not in Hollywood at this particular point interested in doing it. And this isn't just for Stephen King. This isn't pretty much anything. You want recognizable IP, obviously. You don't want a new Stephen King adaptation like The Long Walk, which was produced at a very modest budget. But, Life of Chuck didn't, just run away with it. It was a drama, obviously, as opposed to something much more hard-hitting, like thriller bordering on horror with a lot of drama injected in there as well, like you had with The Long Walk. But, The Long Walk was very modestly budgeted, and you also had familiar faces like Mark Hamill in there to really, ring some people in and everything. And especially because of the concept echoed other concepts like The Hunger Games that Francis Lawrence had worked on, like Battle Royale and other things. So, I mean, yeah, I was very happy to see The Long Walk be successful and profitable for Lionsgate. I thought that was badass. But really, at the end of the day, whether it's, Marvel stuff, Star Wars stuff, whatever, I mean, everybody wants to remake things. They want sequels. They want, side stories. They want prequels. I loved Welcome to Derry. It started out a little slow, but it eventually, just warmed itself up to me, and I greatly appreciated it. But yeah, am I surprised about the fact that Mike Flanagan will be remaking The Mist? At the end of the day, no, I can't be. So I'm going to jump back to the chat really quick. That's okay, because I saw Jose was jumping back in. The criticism of the CGI used for The Mist is the same criticism of the CGI for the Langoliers. Langoliers was terrible TV CGI from I want to say 12, almost 15 years before that, because that was like early mid-90s. I know it was at least a decade before, and it was television, as opposed to. Warranted as well. I've been wanting. Jose, to your point, for them to remake the Langoliers for a long time, because that story is excellent, man. You can't please everyone, but I think a remake of the Langoliers would work maybe today. Yeah, I completely agree. But at least tone down the melodrama of Tommy and Craig Toad. Yeah. So yeah, that kind of, it was this big week for King and announcing the new book that he had been working on for some time. And, Other Worlds Than These, killer title, going back to Midworld, which is what all of us have been wanting him to do. I don't personally count Gwendy's Final Task in that regard, because I just feel that a lot of the Tower stuff in that third entry was really ham-fisted in by Richard Chizmar, personally, for me at least. And I had a lot of issues with that story, man, because you're trying to figure out where on, what level, what turn of the wheel it really took place, especially because you've got Loman, you've got all this different stuff. But then, you also, I don't know. I feel like that book is very much an anomaly in many ways, and I had a lot of misgivings about it personally, but that's neither here nor there. This is King by himself, but also with the blessing of not only Peter Straub's family, but also with a framing device that Peter was responsible for, going back to the territories / Midworld and everything. Just another name for the same, obviously. But I see Hudson jumping in. Would prefer they remake Dreamcatcher. Everything else should be his original work. The Library Policeman, gangster dude, Roadwork, exactly. And Roadwork is one that would be very fascinating in this day and age, because King wrote him almost like an anti-hero. But I think in the current United States political climate, it would be a very testy one, but it would be an incredibly fascinating one for how they could actually approach this guy. You know, our lead in Roadwork. It's the only, I mean, aside from Rage, which is never going to get made. I mean, Blaze would still be interesting too, but you know, that was a drawer novel that he went back and completely reworked. But as far as like the main sort of stuff, and I don't necessarily count the Regulators as main stuff since it was a twinner novel to Desperation. They keep saying, they said what, a year or so ago that they were trying to work on something again for Regulators, which I would love because Regulators is gangster. But as far as the most well-known Bachman book stuff, Roadwork's the only one that hasn't been made now, with the great version of The Long Walk and you know, Running Man and whatnot. Yeah, good suggestions. Oh, my dude Lou, what is going on, man? Gracias, man. Thank you so very much for the kind words, dude, and thanks for leaving some thoughts on the 2025 video that I put up this past weekend in the midst of the superb owl. Lou, I'm curious what you think, man, about remaking this baby. I love this movie, and you know, before you jumped on, Lou, we were actually discussing about how maybe one of the only driving forces for this is better CGI for all of the creatures that, you know, came through this thingy that the government, that the military accidentally opened. But I don't know, you know, I just don't necessarily know. And I was also wondering, you know, did Flanagan approach Warner Brothers, or did Warner Brothers tap Flanagan? Because obviously something had to be worked out between them and Amazon, which is who Flanagan has his first look deal for, which for anybody who doesn't know, that may be watching this in like a replay or whatever, since it always lives forever in the YouTubes until, you know, the internet crashes and we're all in the dark ages or whatever. But after Skynet takes over with all the AI. But so a first look deal is essentially where a creator signs a deal with usually a production studio, but also production studios can be distribution studios as well. Yeah, essentially the people you sign the first look deal with, they have first dibs on any project that you start developing. So if they don't want, first dibs on it, they're just like, nah, we'll pass. You can take it somewhere else and, you know, take it to another studio or what have you. So it really makes me wonder how this was all negotiated, because anything that Flanagan works on has to pass through the Amazon MGM. And I was just watching Crime 101, the new theatrical film, the Don Winslow adaptation that comes out this weekend. I saw an early screening of that yesterday. And I mean, that's Amazon MGM. Amazon MGM, as they said, it's CinemaCon last year. They are going hardcore into theatrical. So perhaps Flanagan's development side is only on the television end, because that's where Carrie is going to end up. Carrie is going to be an Amazon Prime television series. So no say. I don't know. Anyone think the image for T3 hints at a Joe Hill Nosferatu connection? Well, Nosferatu had those connective tissues. I mean, in some of the back half bits, it's actually, aside from King Sorrow, Nosferatu is the most like connecting with his dad's work as far as Easter eggs go, that he did up until that point, because there's a lot of references in King Sorrow. Oh, and I finally have my King Sorrow review ready to go. It's been sitting for a while. I thought that it was going to go on the horror show. Then I didn't know if it was going to go over here. I didn't even get to it till the end of the year, because I was reading all the Stranger Things stuff for the coverage we were doing about the 5th and final season of that, but that's neither here nor there. But I'm excited. I mean, we already have the Gabriel Rodriguez connection with the Lock and Key stuff that he did with Joe, and then he also had worked on Fairy Tale for Joe's dad in Cy King. So exciting stuff. All right, so Jose has some thoughts on the Gwendy books. The Gwendy books almost read like fan fiction. Exactly. Especially because, I mean, Magic Feather essentially was fan fiction. And even Richard Chismar has said that, you know, he was the one that like came to Steve with the button box idea, and they kind of wrote it together. Or maybe it was the other way around, and then Steve had the idea and then he let Rich run with it. I don't know. It's a very interesting symbiotic relationship from Richard Chismar and Cemetery Dance I love Cemetery Dance. I have, or their releases at least. I have all of their King things that they have ever done, whether it's Secretary of Dreams to their deluxe editions of the Doubleday years and It and everything. But it's very interesting, almost no, I'm not going to say, well, it's not, no, I'm not going to say it. I was going to say something a little more disparaging, but I don't want to do that. But yeah, in continuing with what Jose Storm was saying, felt like fan fiction, hot take. Hot take, I guess. No, I don't think that's a hot take at all. I've heard lots of constant readers actually say that. But speaking of short novels, any thoughts on the end times since the collab with Benjamin Percy? And how about Hansel and Gretel? Well, Jose, I did a whole video about Hansel and Gretel. I thought it was awesome, especially the Wizard and Glass little Easter egg connection. I thought it made perfect sense. I thought it was great. I was just looking at the end times the other day because they announced right when they first started putting out those physical newspaper looking things. I believe it was December, if I recall correctly. But they said, hey, we're going to do a whole omnibus. It's going to be a hardcover omnibus of it. And I was like, damn, I'll just wait for the hardcover omnibus as opposed to having to double dip. Everybody wants you to double dip now. I was just looking at the new 4K Criterion for Altered States, one of my all-time favorite movies. I was like, damn, they're just going to keep getting me, until I pass over, join the clearing at the end of the path. But I haven't read any of the end times yet, but I was really tempted to hit the digital version of it so I can at least get a feel for how they're going about it, as opposed to just reading synopsises and seeing some images and things like that. So I have not read either of that, but any of I think they have either 2 or 3 installments out now. But I was waiting for the hardcover omnibus. I'm just not 100% if I'm going to be willing to, because when all of those new short stories were coming out, I didn't wait till You Like It Darker to review all of those. I was doing them periodically as they came out. So that one's still up in the air, but I do have I spent a number of days and a lengthy amount of my time right at the beginning of the new year putting together a big, lengthy document of all kinds of new ideas for Hail to Stephen King videos for 2026 and really trying to get the program ramped back up. So, Hansel and Gretel is great. You can see it. Right back over there. Yeah, it's right back there. It's great. The artwork that Maurice Sendak did was awesome. So I was a big fan of that. Hudson says, I'm curious how the characters will be cast. Flanagan will most likely cast actors he's worked with. Oh yeah, his wife's going to be in there because as much as I love. I believe they met on. I believe it was Hush that they met on. But he puts Katie in everything. She's great though. So in any event, but yeah, a lot of the usual suspects that we saw in everything from Life of Chuck to are appearing in the Carrie series. Some of the actors that appeared in both Hill House, Blind Manor, Midnight Mass. I wasn't as big on his House of Usher as a lot of people were. The first episode was chef's kiss, awesome. But I'm very curious how they're going to cast it. Luke chimes in with, don't really see the need for another Mist, but bet Flanagan will follow the novella ending and may go a little further. That's where I'm wondering. What sort of credence are they going to give him? His stock has risen significantly in Hollywood over the years, obviously, but that's going to get me to a point here in just a little bit after I get caught up on everything. Dying to hear your thoughts on King Sorrow, says Daniel. Looking forward to your review. Yeah, Daniel Corey, great to see a familiar name there, man. I hope everything is. I hope 2026 has been a new year well met with you thus far. Side. The King Sorrow review clocked in at 1 hour and 7 minutes. So I went because it is because I have it right down here. Along with it's also going to entail an unboxing, I think, too, or I may do a separate video for that because I just finally got the Wraith Deluxe Edition, which is the prequel to Nosferatu. But I got the Deluxe Edition pre-order of that from, I believe it was Levidian Press. So that is sitting down there in a box, and it's going to be. But this book is huge, dude. It's a little overblown. It's dragon sized in its excess and whatnot, but I did enjoy it for the most part. I had some thoughts, but that's as is par for the course. So in any event, yes, it will be coming. I would say maybe as soon as this weekend because I filmed the review right around the new year, and then I thought the card was lost. Honestly, the little SD card or whatever. But located. Finally bounced, finally edited, and I think it's going to go up Saturday or Sunday. I don't know, though, if it's going to be here or on the horror show. Also, congrats on finishing school, Daniel. Thanks, man. Yeah, it was about a 2.5-year journey, but it was well worth it, and it's opened up a lot of cool additional like press and independently contracted opportunities, and making a lot more connections, but not quite everything that I hope for. But persistence is key. So okay. Finding it pretty uneven. Still trying to power my way through. End of the world. Yeah, I've got that right down there too. That's another one that I think I'm going to try to break down into. It's like what, 5 or 6 parts, something like that. The End of the World as we know it. The Stand tie-in sort of tribute album-ish sort of thing. So that's King Sorrow is next. King Sorrow is the midsection's a bit of a slog. I feel like. The only thing I will say about King Sorrow is I appreciated Joe's ambition immensely, but it could have been trimmed down a lot. That's all I will say until the full review comes out. Okay. Their movie, damn autocorrect. Yeah. Congrats on graduating. First, when's your first movie coming out? Well, I wrote a couple scripts. It's probably going to be a short at this point. I mean, because Cecil is trying to find funding for his feature right now. I have a short that I'm trying to get into some sort of pre-production called Mommy, M-A-M-I, and that's about all I will say at this point. But it's a fun one. So in any event, so now that I've caught up on everybody, and thanks to everybody who's either tuned into this or is watching in the replays and whatnot. But so my big issue with seeing Mike Flanagan, and this is what I really wanted to tie into. My big issue with Mike Flanagan remaking this, even though I think this is terrific, rewatch it, and in the black and white, as Frank Darabont said that, as he says on this deluxe edition, the 2-disc and the supplemental features, he's like, I always envisioned it as like a 50s monster sort of movie, and he has a black and white version of the film. And watching it in black and white, those special effects from 2007 that everybody's been so critical of over the years, especially newer people watching it now, younger viewers and everything, I think it hides the age of those special effects in a lot of ways. I truly do. And it's actually my preferred viewing experience of 2007's The Mist. Now, they never put out a physical version of the Spike television series single season. You can definitely see why. I've been trying to import a non-region version of Chapelwaite, the one season of that with Adrian Brody that they did that I thought was excellent. So, I mean, some of those Kingsters, just like they never put out a physical version of Gerald's Game. They never put out a physical version of 1922. Now, I know that's kind of par for the course of Netflix. They experimented a little bit with physical releases of those first couple Stranger Things seasons and whatever, because I own both of those. But I would love to have like a physical version of both with, just commentary track. I mean, some behind the scenes. It would just be, that'd be so rad. But my big worry with this being remade by Flanagan is that, and it's kind of the purpose of how I made the thumbnail for this video, I am getting less, and not that I was like super hopeful even at this point to begin with, about Mike Flanagan finally getting to do his Dark Tower series, because he's trying to be super ambitious with it. Since he announced that he got the rights, he has long said that he wanted to do a combination, much like Ron Howard did before the god-awful Dark Tower 2017 film that Nicolas Jarcel did. He had said that, and still continues to say, anytime Mike Flanagan goes on the rounds for press and stuff, everybody wants to ask him about the tower to some degree. And all that he says is, we're still developing it. We're still developing it. I still have the rights. And I know that that's something that has to be kind of re-upped on. So I do not question his dedication. What I question is the feasibility. And that's because we all know, if all tower junkies know, just the absolute grand scope and scheme, and just, I mean, how huge this story is. And I do not fault what Ron Howard wanted to do, and the similar sort of approach that Flanagan wants to do, of a combination of television seasons, multiple seasons of a show, and tie-in films. They did it with Deadwood, for instance. And I love Deadwood. I didn't adore when they came back to make the movie, but I thought it was pretty damn good. We see a lot of these revival type series at this particular point. But it's, and obviously I don't question the dedication of Tower junkie, self-proclaimed Mike Flanagan. But when you see him do a Carrie remake for Amazon, when you see the fact that he is coming on board to save the Exorcist franchise, and he's in the midst of casting all of these, big time names for that, for his basically, we're going to, scrub Believer, which I didn't think Believer was terrible, but it wasn't that good. I wasn't a big fan of what those guys did with, the Halloween franchise, but that's neither here nor there. It's not that sort of conversation. But, when he still has The Exorcist that he's working on now, and we can only presume that after The Exorcist will be this Mist project, he still has been unable to find that his first look deal is with Amazon. Amazon passed on the pilot that was done by Glenn Mazzara, I want to say the guy who was behind The Walking Dead, and that is still one of my white whales. I have not been able to track down a digital copy anywhere on the interwebs of that. A few fellow constant readers that do podcasts and stuff that I know of were like sworn to secrecy, and they're like, nope, I can't like anybody that like, I can't share this with you. I can't even like point you in directions or whatever, because if you ever did I did, along with Cecil, get to see one of the pilots that never came to fruition of Lock and Key before the third and final one became the Netflix series. So, but Amazon already passed on The Dark Tower. Okay. And the Dark Tower film from 2017 that Arcel did was a box office bomb. And it was panned by both critics and audiences, most notably like the fervent Tower junkies and amongst constant readers. And I think that with every new project that Flanagan gets attached to, it just lessens and lessens and lessens the likelihood. And that's what I said in the thumbnail. I feel like we are further than ever from Flanagan. And when do you just finally accept the fact that it's just, cause a wheel and you're going in circles and you'll never find the Horn of Eld and you'll never be able to, blow it at the top of the tower, Flanny? I mean, I just don't know, man. I really don't know. And, just coming to terms with that, it's like, the stages of grief, right? As they like to say. So it's obviously not completely out of the realm of possibility. I do not doubt that he has employed just like immense, hundreds, if not thousands of hours, between writing and, concept art and, talking to different actors about the possibility of filling out both, a young Roland and, the new quartet and stuff. I just don't know, guys. I genuinely don't. And that he's the perfect person to do it, in my estimation, based on his deep affinity for understanding the emotionality that Stephen King approaches all of his work with. So it's just, I have a lot of skepticism, and with every new project that comes out, I find myself more and more skeptical. So when I see Hudson is chiming in once again with some other stuff, I am open to a new version of The Mist. Do I think it's necessary? No, but I think it could be interesting. There you go. Honestly, I doubt his version of The Dark Tower will happen. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I wanted to see Ben Stiller do Rat. Yep. And apparently the rights to that lapsed because Ben Stiller acquired those rights immediately when If It Bleeds was about to release, because as all too often happens with King stuff now, the book is about to come out and the rights have already been obtained by somebody even before they come out. I mean, look what happened with Sleeping Beauties when they announced immediately it was going to be an AMC series, and they updated that a year or two ago and said, yeah, we're still working on it. It's still going to happen. And like, you're not going to make Fetch a thing. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen. And I talked about this in my 2025 look back video that went up on Sunday, but they keep saying we're making Billy Summers, and they just said again, yeah, Green Grass is still making Fairy Tale. I don't know. I mean, honestly, Mr. Yummy and stuff like that, those very tiny little indie kind of unknown Stephen King stories, I think those have a higher likelihood in some ways. I mean, they modestly made The Long Walk, like I was saying earlier. So I just really, really don't know. But okay, so jumping back to it, Flanagan has already finished the first season scripts for Dark Tower. Oh, Lou, yeah, I know. I read that too. I mean, but how many things get written and never even go into actual production, never get greenlit, never find somebody who's willing to fork over the money? I mean, That's the thing. You can write until you're blue in the damn face, but I mean, it's not going to mean it. He wrote a script for Revival. That never happened, you know? So, I mean, just because all the pieces are in place doesn't mean that, you know, I mean, you can have a game that you're about to play and then it ends up getting forfeited because the whole team gets the flu or something. I mean, I don't know. That's a very poor sports analogy, but I mean, just because all the stuff is written and he has the aspiration and the desire to make it, for me, doesn't mean that anything is guaranteed. I'm very much like, shout out to Mike Kearns from Mike's Book Reviews, one of my longtime partners on the Path of the Beam. I share his mentality of the fact that until they tell me it has been shot and it's in post-production, like, we know that Carrie is pretty much a done thing. I mean, it's like they wrapped filming, there's shots on the set of them making it, Amazon money behind it. We know for sure that that is happening. And, you know, the Institute was a modest success for MGM Plus. And so they made the official announcement that it's in development. They announced that it has been greenlit. And so when something is greenlit, that's like 99% that they're not going to back out on it. So my skepticism, I think, is warranted. But yeah, I'm well aware that he's got the first season. Well, he's got all of the seasons and films outlined, and all the scripts for the first season are done, but it just keeps getting pushed to the side. He's like, oh, I'll take on this next movie, and then I'll take on this next movie. Carrie hasn't even come out yet. I mean, he hasn't even, I don't even think he's started shooting The Exorcist, or if he has, I mean, because they're still announcing new cast members. I don't even think they've started rolling cameras yet, still in pre-production. So I don't know, man. I don't know. So I did see a new name on there, Rad Art and Comics. Seems like he has too much on his plate. I 100% agree. I truly feel like he does. And that's the same reason why on a project like Hill House or a project like Bly Manor, he was like, okay, I'll be in the writers, or even the R.L. Stine, the Midnight Club. That was another one where he was like, he was in the writer's room and he directed a couple of episodes. But that's why something like Midnight Mass, that was so much more of a personal project to him and is still my favorite thing he ever did. It's a different sort of scenario when he is writing by himself, not overseeing a writer's room, not as a showrunner, which I'm thinking more and more, if the Tower does happen, that is more likely the sort of scenario that we will have. He'll be out directing and doing his thing and everything and continuing to up his stake in Hollywood, and yet he'll just oversee the Dark Tower, which, I mean, hey, it's still better him than just about any other name that I can think of if it does come to that. But once again, you still have to find a home for it. You still have to find people who are like, you know, people who are going to sign the checks and, you know, have a plan for it and will green light it, you know? So, okay, continuing on. Still believe Flanagan will do the Dark Tower. Just, I hope I live long enough to see it. Yeah, amen to that, Lou. I hope the world doesn't spiral into insanity without much craziness is out there. I really forgot about the Spike TV adaptation of The Mist, but oh well, like it as forgettable as The Rage Carrie 2 or Mercy. Yeah, Mercy with Carl from The Walking Dead. Yeah, man. So, boy, I don't know. The way Flanagan's going, he'll do a Talisman trilogy first. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, man. I mean, it would be nice for somebody to finally do the Talisman. Unpopular theory, says Hudson, but I feel like remaking The Mist was just an excuse to get Flanagan to do another King project. Yeah, I don't think that's a hot take or anything. I think that's 100% the case, and perhaps he's using. Hear me out, because this is just coming to me after your suggestion there, Hudson. Makes me wonder. Flanagan's like, okay. He's like, okay, guys. Okay, Warner Brothers, to give my little thoughts very briefly on it, I am hoping that Skydance Paramount does not get. I actually, very similar to a fellow Canadian to Lou there, John Campia, who's one of my favorite YouTubers, going all the way back to his AMC days. I have also changed my tune about Netflix acquiring Warner Brothers because they want to keep it as an independent sort of entity under their like parent company umbrella of sorts, and keep HBO as its separate thing with Max. And now that doesn't mean that certain things won't be folded into to Netflix on the theatrical exhibition side, and when they come home, but as far as HBO for television goes, I'm wondering, Flanagan's like, okay, check it out. He's like, Warner Brothers, and presumably once the deal closes with Netflix and everything, he's like, okay. He's like, I worked for a while with Netflix. Netflix, presumably, going to be provided all approvals, acquiring Warner Brothers. He's like, I'll do the Mist for you. It's a proven commodity. It's a proven IP. The original film that Darabont did, very, very celebrated. He's like, but if I do that for you, you got to at least give me one season of The Dark Tower on HBO. He's like, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Could y'all imagine? I mean, what better destination, I think, as far as prestige television for The Dark Tower than HBO? I mean, that would be incredible. Now, I know they have their hands full with all of the things. I mean, the new Harry Potter they're doing, every Game of Thrones spinoff you can freaking think of, and various other things. But maybe it's a tit for tat. He's like, okay, I'll do a theatrical Mist remake for you, but you got to at least let me take a stab at the tower on HBO. That would be incredible. Perhaps that is a part of the negotiation process, because all signs have pointed to Amazon passing on another attempt at a Dark Tower television series, but we'll see. What else we got? Rad Art and Comics chimes back in. I wouldn't mind a more military viewpoint of the Mist with heavy sci-fi angle. That could be really rad too. I mean, they are the catalyst. They're they're kind of the they are the spark for opening up that thingy and everything getting all cray cray. Hudson chimes in and says, I'm not trying to gloat to my own idea, but I dig Jane being a gender swapped Carmody. He is a great underrated actor, as in Thomas Jane is who Hudson is referring to. And it would be cool since he's worked with Flanagan before and was in the original. Yeah, it would be. And that would very much be a whole other worlds than these, sort of, different turn of the wheel, level of the tower sort of situation. We don't have Coca-Cola here. We have Nozzle Cola. We don't have a female. Although, it was a very just kind of interesting. But King has done the whole, all the way back to Carrie, obviously, the religious sort of fanatic female angle. So, yeah, flipping that on its head could be interesting. I mean, it's been done a lot one way or the other, but just anything to make it a little more distinctive, a little bit different, as opposed to just like a regurgitation of, for me, a terrific film that Darabont had done previously. So, yeah, guys, I mean, it's been just about an hour now. So I did eventually want to round back to the fact that October 6th, we have our new Stephen King book officially dated, which is extremely exciting and just gets me super pumped to have him back in Midworld. And he had to actually consult Robin Firth extensively, because he's getting up there in years. And I mean, when you've written as many novels as he has, dozens and dozens and dozens, that's not even including hundreds of short stories and everything else under the sun. It's good that he has that sort of historian in Robin to, not like assisted with the comic books, for Marvel and everything. And he expanded the lore there. Pretty dope. So, but heading back October 6th, and the first official King thing to be dated. And so let's see. He described it in the Esquire article that I mentioned earlier as unfinished business. And his summary was, Jack must stop a rampaging gang of infected teenagers from America's side and the forces of mysterious gullets at the edge of Midworld before it destroys our world and all worlds. Jack is older now. His quartet, echoing the world of Roland, is freeing and his task nearly impossible. Some of that may seem like a foreign language to casual readers, but it's a long road until the debut in October. But I'm trying to get to, they have, for those who are interested, because I was planning to finish the video with this, since we have hit at least all of my presumed bullet points in the hour-ish that I approached it with. So King actually gave to Esquire the first chapter of Other Worlds Than These. And it says right here, Other Worlds Than These by Stephen King and Peter Straub. So escucha, because I'm going to get a little bit closer so I can see what you taste like. And let's give this. So for anybody who does not want to hear the first, it's only like about, it's only about a page or so. So it is just the tiniest little taste, everybody. But I am curious. This is how Sai King begins the book. And so, all have been forewarned if you don't want to hear it. If you would prefer to just read it yourself, it is in the Esquire article that I believe went up either late yesterday, early today. And here we go. Right here and now, as an old friend used to say, we are in the fluid present. So see this and see it well. It's a man standing on a balcony behind a waist-high balustrade made of pink stone, what's called kinestone in this part of Midworld. He's wearing faded jeans and an equally faded t-shirt advertising Kingsland Ale, which according to the slogan is the king of ales. This man has sampled many bottles of Kingsland and is more than willing to vouch for the slogan. Not because it's good, but because dear friends of his used to brew it in a town called French Landing. That town is in another world. We know this man. He's not the boy of 12 we met in the summer of 1981, but the resemblance to that boy, first encountered in the town of Arcadia Beach, New Hampshire, is undeniable. That boy was at the start of a great adventure, although he didn't know it. All he knew in September of 1981 was that his mother was sick. How sick? He didn't know, but an interior voice whispered, very sick, very sick. It's not the steady Atlantic he's looking at today, but the clean sea of Midworld's Mage's Barony, oh boy. Yet, with his hands deep in his pockets and his hair blowing back from his forehead in the breeze so the gray doesn't show, he could almost be that boy. He should look more like the man he was in French Landing because he's closer to that person in age. But life doesn't always work that way. The boy was worried about his sick mother, but otherwise untried. This man has been tried in all sorts of ways, and his face shows it. Deep lines descend from the corners of his mouth. There are crow's feet, likewise deep, around his eyes. His hair, salt and pepper, when he first came to this seaside town, is now almost entirely salt. The town is called Desi, which sounds like it should be pronounced Desi, but is actually pronounced D's-I. The man looks the name. To him, it sounds like desire. There are reasons why this man is so thin and pale, both like the boy he once was and unlike the man who lived in French Landing, Wisconsin. While attending a press conference in that town with his brewmeister friends and a cop named Dale Gilbertson, a woman with a grudge, Wanda Kinderling by name, shot this man in the chest. The bullet nicked his heart. He should have died and didn't because another friend, Speedy Parker, took him to another world, this world, where he was healed, which was a miracle. This man can go back to his country, a pale town of a place of town fairs, freeways, school shootings, and 4th of July parades, but only for short periods. If he stays long, old wounds will break open, including the one in his wounded heart. His head will ache, his muscles will weaken, his skin will break out, he'll have trouble swallowing and catching his breath. Yet he has to go back from time to time. There's a price to be paid for miracles. For living in the lovely and quiet seaside town of D's-I, get it properly now, of D's-I, and he pays for it. And he pays it not just for himself, but for others. In Midworld, which this man called the territories when he was a boy, there is a word for those bound together by fate and circumstance. Katat. The man doesn't like to use that term for the 4 men and 1 woman who have come to depend on him, but sometimes admits to himself, usually in the dark of night when he can't sleep, and it fits all too well. How it happened, how this burdensome tet formed, isn't much of a mystery. Long story short, he couldn't help what happened. So, without getting into too much spoilery detail, yes, there was a mortal-ish wounding of Jack Sawyer at the end of Black House. And so, yeah, I mean, going back to Midworld and everything, you know, the healing properties and different medicines and whatnot, but obviously going back to the Americas, it just starts to, you know, wear him down, and he would die if he was to just stay there permanently, which is reasoning for the jumping back and forth and stuff. I mean, hearing the barony mages, I mean, that obviously conjures all sorts of memories and things of that nature, which is incredibly exciting. And we have references to Roland and the Quartet. So I'm curious just how much interaction we're going to have. There's been a lot of speculation. We're going to have Holly in this book too. She's going to finally make the jump in the journey. I'm not sure, but aside from some of the in references for not just Tower Junkies, but also for those who are familiar with just, I mean, if you read just the Talisman, that's one thing, but Black House was where there were just too many connections, I think, with all of the Dark Tower stuff to really be able to just enjoy it anywhere near as much if you hadn't really jumped on those books as well. You still could, but you would probably be asking yourself a whole lot of questions, like who the hell is the Crimson King, things like that. So, but what I find most striking about this is King writing Jack Sawyer as kind of a stand-in for himself, an avatar of sorts. And the fact that describing, going from a boy to, a man with salt and pepper hair, and now his hair is all silver practically. I mean, Jack is obviously him. And it's been like King's writing has always been personal, but I feel like there has been in stuff like this, which I have found less in the Holly stuff, but much more so in a lot of these short stories that were in You Like It Darker. I feel like this sort of self-reflection was much more inherent and much more apparent. I'm really digging this. I mean, I can't help it. My excitement levels are through the roof. There's something I talk about on both the horror show and here on my own personal channel. That is the burden of expectation. This is laying it out pretty heavily, y'all. One thing that most definitely, turtly has to happen, man, is a revisit of both of these. A revisit of these two, I mean, has to happen. But I mean, if time allows, back when I was still doing Hail on the horror show channel, I had a video where it was my recommended Dark Tower and all of its like most noteworthy tie-in books. Whether it's the Everything's Eventual novella from the collection of the same name to bigger ones like Salem's Lot, Insomnia, and whatnot. My preferred order with which to read all of those, and it wasn't published order. It was in as far as story tie-in order and where you would get the most like chronological context. And do I want to actually go back to my recommendation there? Because, with the aforementioned Gwendy's Final Task, that shit ties in very heavily with the Tower. And I have long been wrestling with even putting it somewhere in that order, because as Hudson said, as Jose Storms said earlier, it does feel like fan fiction in a lot of ways. So, just almost like less like how they approached some of the stuff in It Welcome to Derry, but more so the way they approached the Castle Rock television series, for instance, very much different turn of the wheel, like fan fiction sort of stuff. And I still have my Sai King fan. I hate to use the term fan fiction. It was like a tribute continuation sort of thing. I'm not going to go into what it is right here because I revisited that idea since the new year, trying to think of approaching it maybe in a different sort of medium. But with that in mind, should I attempt to reread if time would allow? I just don't know if it would. That's the damn thing, man. Because I didn't read all of it. Like it took me, years to read all of these books behind me in order. And I do believe my final count was 19, starting with the Gunslinger and then going back around to the expanded re-release from the 2000s. So I don't know. It's just a thought. But what did all of you guys think, guys, gals, and everything else? However, you think and feel and, like to identify, that's all coolio. But yeah. How does everybody feel about this first tiniest little morsel of a taste? I don't think there's really anything spoilery, unless you haven't read Black House. But I don't know. This would be a very weird entry point, despite what all the press materials will say about fans familiar or just brand new. No. I know you want to sell books, but I'm extremely excited. Everybody, this is just I'm pumped. I haven't been this excited about a book since. When was the last time? I mean, I was really, really stoked about Fairy Tale because I thought that was going to have a lot more connective tissue. didn't really have any, so that was I still kind of lament that as a missed opportunity, but that's just me personally. So in any event, I'm going to jump as we are rounding things back out down to see if anybody else popped in and said anything else. I'm surprised nobody wants Doomickey or Revival to be made. They've tried, with Revival. The issue was with both Josh Boone and then later on with Mike Flanagan. It was budgetary constraints. It was Flanagan clashing with, I forget what studio he was working with on the Revival, but did not want to change that bleak as fuck ending. And so it ended up, not materializing. Doomickey is really, I think Doomickey would make a terrific television series. I genuinely do. I understand Insomnia with all the Tower tie-ins and stuff being a little bit more difficult, but Doomickey I think would be terrific, especially because it's King stepping into his now home. I believe he lives in Florida more of the year than he does. He's only in Maine in the summer, really. Rest of the time he's in Florida. So that's been his home for decades now at this point. And so a King story in a different setting, I think would be great. I mean, Wireman's still one of my favorite King characters that he's ever written. So I don't know, man. I don't know. It's a red team go. Yep, the first chapter gives me chills. Oh, Lou, dude, I'm right there with you, man. Oh, I'm so excited. And these are even, since I haven't revisited Black House in a while, I mean, I remembered the state of Jack Sawyer, but I must admit, until I was reading those first few lines about, the woman shooting him and like some of the context behind it and everything, I was just like, oh yeah, because I'm not going to spoil the end of Black House any more than what King said just now. But boy, I can't wait to go back. I can't wait to get back to Midworld. Oh my Lord. So guys, I've been going for nearly 90 minutes at this particular point, which is a little bit longer than I had initially anticipated. So I guess that is going to wrap up. So I'm sad about the fact that I don't know about Mike Flanagan and everything. So it's like, but I'm very excited that King is returning to Midworld from what I can presume, maybe just one last time. And I think he is going to, as much as he definitively gave an ending to, well, hold up. Unfortunately, I have kitties. I have 2 cats now. And up until about a year and a half, 2 years ago, however long it's been, I didn't have any cats. And so between some dust in the house from like all the books and everything and trying to keep all that, and then the dander from my cats, now I sneeze a lot more than I ever used to because I do have like a little bit of a mild allergy. But as much as we got a definitive-ish ending to Dark Tower 7, there's a reason why he returned for, went through the keyhole and whatnot. But I think that this will not, it's not just going to be the end to the Jack Sawyer saga. I think that this may be King finally. We're not going to get Jericho Hill, we're not going to get the fall of Gilead. I think we're just going to have to accept that was presented through some of his notes, with Robin Firth and everything in comic book form, and just accepted at that, But he did say on the Sleeping Beauties book tour that I saw him at in person with Owen, he said that he did have one more Tower story in him before he retires or goes off to the clearing at the end of the path, which I don't even want to think about, my favorite author. But I think that this is going to finally shut the door, or at least, shut the door is the wrong term. Close, not just the chapter, but close the book on just Midworld and the Tower, and maybe even like the tie-ins and everything, because all of the Castle Rock tie-ins and stuff in like the main verse of sorts, Ludlow and Derry and everything. That's Castle Rock. That's one thing. Haven, but it's another thing, for all of the connective tissue, with Midworld and all of these other things and stuff. And so I think this is King very much, especially because he's even said he's really in the midst of like approaching a semi-retirement sort of thing. So we know he's got one more Holly book, but then again, he's always got one more Holly book up his sleeve, right? So that's a thing. But yeah, y'all, I don't know. I do kind of in my heart of, especially after he went through the keyhole, and as much as my feelings were mixed about the 7th Dark Tower book, I just felt after he wrote the Wind Through the Keyhole that he was definitely not done. with that, just massive, just creative output of his career. This is feeling very much like the old man that is Jack Sawyer now, over in Midworld, like reflecting back, and this feels very much to me like the last time around, like that photo that King put up when that awful Dark Tower movie was about to come out. So yeah, final chapter, closing of the book, but I'm okay with it. I truly am, and I can't wait to read this October 6th. You can pre-order it. You can pre-order the Audible with one of your credits now, so that option is there too. But everybody, I extend the grande gracias. I've been Jaime Fuego. You can find Walt on all social media sectors: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. A grande gracias to those who, if you're watching this in a replay, thank you so very much for that, because these things live on YouTube. But for those who actually jumped on for this impromptu bit with me, Hudson, Tose Storms, Lou, Daniel Corey Novak, who jumped on and said what's up. Also a name that I did not ring as much of a bell of familiarity. Oh boy, where'd it go? It was Arts and okay, Rad Art and Comics. For those who jumped on and had some things to say, some insight to chime in, some impressions, thoughts about I'm being a little bit more pessimistic, I guess, about the Flanagan bit of the news, but I'm much more hopeful and excited, especially after reading those first couple paragraphs of the very beginning of the book. I cannot wait. So, to Lou, Hudson, Jose, Daniel, Corey, everybody who jumped on and said what's up and had a little bit of time with me here. Once again, grande gracias. I'm on all social media sectors, even though I'm very disillusioned with a lot of social media. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikyTokies, all the stuff. But I try to keep it, not as much of a reflection about, current social, political turmoil, contention, all that different stuff. Most of my things are actually just short little reel and just very brief little videos about films that I watch. I go out to the theater and I watch a lot of them, but I still very much love doing these long form Hail to Stephen King bits and stuff. And so presumably this weekend, finally getting to that hour plus video. It's almost 70 minutes of King Sorrow. So that will be coming, as well as various other things. I mean, the Institute first season. I mean, just tons and tons of different stuff. So I think I have like 30 plus different ideas for videos in the coming months in 2026 until as we anxiously anticipate October 6th. So once again, I guess that'll be it. Hasta luego, sin amigos, constant readers and viewers alike. Say thank you. I hope we have been well met. I hope we share more of this palaver sooner rather than later. And until that instance occurs, remember, I always give the shout out to the Horror Show channel. Obviously, go subscribe, youtube.com/the Horror Show channel. Stay scared and read Stephen King, and in this case, also Peter Straub. This is where it all began. All right, y'all. Lou, thanks so very much, man. You got me fired up. Yeah, brother. We're going to have some palaver once as we get a little bit closer to this one coming out. So thanks again, everybody. And yes, keep on reading.